It's a film which filmmaker and J.G. Patterson collaborator Worth Keeter described as a redneck Frankenstein. You could call it many things. It is a wild, strange movie, but The Body Shop, later known on home video as Dr. Gore, is a weird and wild and a movie which has it leaves you speechless. It plumbs the depths of ineptitude in a degree that is almost undescribable, and which is so bad that it's good. That phrase, "it's so bad that it's good," that applies to this film perfectly, because the film is so bad, but yet it is incredibly entertaining. I can't put this movie down. It's the work of a singular man, a real talent, and I borrow this phrase from the great filmmaker Andrei Tarkovsky, and I paraphrase it, but that a film sometimes is defined by its flaws. That a perfect movie is not a good movie. That if you have the cracks and the flaws, and I find that in many things in life, that something that has some kind of problem or issue, sometimes that becomes its strength. And I mean, oh man, Dr. Gore and The Body Shop has many faults, but it's just in its totality, such an entertaining movie, and it really deserves to have a new life on digital, on Blu-ray. The DVD release is getting a little bit old. So I talked about filmmaker J.G. Pat Patterson's last film in another video, which was The Electric Chair. And Pat Patterson was a filmmaker who died many years ago, over 40 years ago. He died in 1975, only made a few films, was primarily a magician, a stage magician, and he did these gigantic stage magician road shows. He gave himself the name Don Brandon, the stage name Don Brandon, and at the beginning of Dr. Gore, I'll call it Dr. Gore because I love that name. At the beginning of Dr. Gore, he calls himself America's #1 magician, and he got involved in the production of some Herschel Gordon Lewis films like Moonshine Mountain and The Gruesome Twosome and She-Devils on Wheels. Then he started making his own movies, his own homegrown movies in the North Carolina area. And in the early 70s, North Carolina was a kind of this buzzing with drive-in filmmakers, with people making kind of grindhouse drive-in type movies. And his last film, The Electric Chair, was kind of like a work for hire. It was like this guy who owned some drive-ins, had some money, wanted to make a film, but it was really a work for hire film. Dr. Gore, also known as The Body Shop, and the original title was Anitra. Dr. Gore was really the type of film that Patterson wanted to make. Patterson loved Universal monsters. He loved Frankenstein and Dracula and horror movies and shock horror movie thriller shows. And I mean, a lot of his stage acts were kind of like geared around that. He'd show movies and then get up and do a stage act, do a magic trick, and then show some more movies. So it was a whole night of entertainment, and you imagine going to these little small towns. He'd tour all over the country, these small towns. He'd show up and start showing movies and start doing magic, and people were probably just transfixed by this. This was the 60s and the 70s and even the early 70s. Entertainment was, it was hard to come by, and so this traveling roadshow magic show, I guess in Don Brandon's in Patterson's mind, I mean, the next step was, to go into the next era of ballyhoo, which was filmmaking, as so many of his people before him, Kroger Babs, all those, Dave Friedman, all those guys before him. And so the plot of The Body Shop is pretty simple. A plastic surgeon, our mad scientist, he loses his love, the love of his life, and so he has to bring her back to life by stealing, body parts from unwilling female donors. So he goes out and he starts kidnapping these women or hypnotizing them, and then taking them back to his laboratory where he cuts them apart. There are some. It's a simple plot. There are so many Frankenstein movies that are like that. I made a feature film called Frankenstein's Bloody Nightmare, which is essentially that kind of same plot, but Patterson has reconstructed this plot, and there is this saying, films that were made up as they went along, films which didn't really have a script, didn't go by a script, and you feel that with Patterson's work, but you also you have this weird feeling that the script was being made as it was going along, but things were just he was doing things backwards, because there's so many ideas in this film which are unformed or backwards or never really fully articulated. And first of all, the big thing is he keeps going on about how he wants to bring his wife back, or he keeps stroking this single rose, and you see him, feeding this rose weird fluids with a glass pipette or something. And he's like, oh, my wife will be, but we never, it's like he's stealing women and he's just trying to bring them back to life. It's like, no, you don't want to bring your wife back to life. And he keeps talking about the perfect mate. Well, is the perfect mate your old wife that would died? Or, are you going to make the perfect woman who is just in general? Because I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to see a brain in a jar. We're going to see the head, like the brain that wouldn't die or something like that. But you never see that. So that immediately that kind of confused me. Does he want the perfect woman, or does he want his old wife back? It didn't make sense. But there's so many things here which are just kind of weird and sideways. You just you just go with it. Your brain realigns. And there are elements of the film that I'm spoiling. I feel like I need to spoil it, because I feel like if you go into the film unprepared, you could be injured, you could be hurt. There's this great documentary on the North Carolina grindhouse filmmakers by that Severin Films put out on the Blu-ray of Axe and Kidnap Coed. Axe was another film which J.G. Patterson was involved in producing. Frederick Friedel came down from New York. He had some backers there in North Carolina, and they were like, this guy Patterson is making films in the area, he can help you. And he helped him cast the film, he helped him get the production crew together and everything. And he tells a story in that documentary. Friedel tells a story, the director of Axe tells a story about how the first time he watched Dr. Gore, he was just blown back by how bad it was. He was almost like disturbed. It was almost like shocking how bad, and that's how I feel like. Look, I'm not a guy who throws bad movies in the bus, or throws movies in the bus in general. But the effect that this movie has on you, it's almost like some kind of mind control thing. It feels like an MK Ultra type of a movie. It's just there are so elements that are like backwards. There's a lot of backwards elements to it as well. Like he gives life to this woman, and then you see him in the next scene, she's dressed, and he's telling her stuff, and then it goes to another scene, and then another scene, he's dressing her. So it's like, is she dressed? Is she not dressed? He has this hunchback assistant like an Igor, but he calls him Gregory. And Gregory helps him get the first few bodies, and then Don Brandon, he calls himself Don Brandon in the film. Don goes to him and is like, if you help me, I will make you normal, and it's like, and then he goes, arr. He never talks. The hunchback goes, arr. And it's like, but he's already helped you 3 scenes. Why would you have? He has no, and it's just there. And there's a scene where he's teaching this. It's a hilarious scene with a voiceover, where he's teaching his Anitra, this perfect woman that he's made out of all these parts. He says, I will let her smell perfume, and then I will smell the vinegar, which smells horrible, but it is great on salads. I'm not making it up. That's what he really says in the movie. But it's a voiceover, but you hear the voiceover, and then like the scene happens. Like usually you'd have that voiceover, and you'd have like it would be happening over the scene. I mean, even in Herschel, Gore, and Lewis, this is, you have a voiceover, but then you have stuff happening over the voiceover, which is what the guy's describing. No, he describes it, and then the scene happens, and it's like your brain is just like, how do I process this? How do I process this? And then the coup de grace is at the very end of the film, towards the end of the film. You see an actual slate in the middle of the picture, and it's like, what is this, a joke? Is this not? I mean, was this an error? Was this a lab mess up? I almost feel like it's a lab mess up, because you notice that the slate, the scene, the picture quality is really grainy and filthy, but then when he knocks it, it gets really good. Like there was some negative cut issue. But it's a weird. But that was weird. Also, it looks like he was trying to do some kind of match cut, and then there was dialogue while the slate's going on. It's a weird cut. It's a weird scene. But it's just another one of those things in this movie that you just kind of go, what? I mean, the whole. I mean, that's not. I'm not even talking about the whole monotony of the thing and the fact that he's, this just repetition of this going and kidnapping women, and I mean, that's beside the point. I mean, you could, in a normal movie, you might be able to criticize that, but you can't even criticize that. It's like that's nothing compared to just the weirdness of the plot and the fact that things are so weird and backwards. That's a cakewalk compared to that. I mean, it's just such a strange movie, full of strangeness, full of weirdness, and but I mean, there are a lot of good elements to the movie as well. I mean, the atmosphere of the film, for what it is, very well done in a way. The film is shot relatively well. I mean, I think the editing is really where it fails. But otherwise, the way I've seen films from that era that were shot a lot worse. I mean, this film does not look like. I mean, there was a lot of adult X-rated stuff that was really, really low budget and just not. This thing looks good, And he shoots at this gigantic location, which looks like just a gigantic castle. I don't know where he shot it. I'm just, it's whoa. The main location is kind of big. He has kind of, the laboratory set is kind of meager and small, but other than that, I mean, there's the other grounds of his estate. There's this gigantic living room and some other things here, and it seems like they didn't shoot very many scenes in that area. But otherwise, it's a good. I mean, the production value is good, and the special effects. I mean, the gore effects, I would say, are on the level of Herschel, Gore, and Lewis. They're on that level, if not a little bit better, because they seem to be obviously an evolution of Don Brandon's J.G. Patterson's stage act, where he has a lot of things where he is. It's mostly just cutting up women on this table, which has a white sheet over it, and so obviously he's hiding the real body parts, the real missing body parts underneath this sheet. But he's doing it in such a way it feels like very much an evolution of like the stage acts of like cutting a woman in half or sawing a woman in half, where the real body is half of it's hidden underneath the table, and there's the certain angle, or there's certain mirrors they're hiding it, and that's what he does in this film. And there's some really stunning shots where you see a woman who just, but in this film it's real bloody. He adds the blood, where you'll see a woman, they're only their upper torso, and the rest is missing. But what's happened is, obviously it's hiding under the table, and some very clever stuff going on like that, and bloody, and it holds up. It holds up. It's at a Herschel Gordon Lewis level, if not a little bit higher. So you really feel that, he really brought his stage act into this movie. So that stuff is good. And then Don Branham himself, people describe him even to this day as this magnetic character. This charismatic, magnetic character. And he really has like a vibe of like a Peter Cushing, and I was watching this movie, I always felt like it was going to go into, okay, it's going to get logical, it's going to become like that Frankenstein created woman. And the way that woman, what was her name? Jenny Driggers. There's so many mysteries in this film. Jenny Driggers was, Driggers, sorry. Jenny Driggers. She was the Anitra. She was the Lady Love, and she only did one other movie. She's credited to one other movie called The Night of the Cat, which Something Weird also released on DVD-R. And I want to watch that. That seems like it's like a revenge movie, apparently. But she didn't do anything else. A lot of the other people involved in this movie worked on other Patterson movies. They worked on The Electric Chair and Axe. One of the guys in this film, one of the movers in this film, was one of the guys who gets killed at the beginning of Axe, and then he's also in The Electric Chair. He plays the guy who was in the back seat with the woman at night. Patterson has a weird sense of humor. There are all these jokes which are meant to be kind of punny, but they're just weird. Like, there's this scene with this guy in a bar where he talks, and she had the greatest, the biggest, and then a bar guy comes around, a waiter comes over and is like, hey, I need 2 Schlitz. One wonders if he really did put the slate at the end of the film just as some kind of like J.G. Patterson, only he would think that's funny. There's all these weird little jokes. But overall, in totality, and his real wife, Nita Patterson, she shows up in this movie. She showed up also in The Electric Chair, and I wonder how she felt with him going and pawing all these young women. Anyway, it's a strange movie. It really lives up to the video labels, Something Weird Video. Their title. The DVD is pretty good. The Something Weird DVD was released, oh my God, over a decade ago, and it's showing its age a little bit. That was the golden era of Something Weird DVD, where you'd be able to go into Best Buy and buy like a copy of Dr. Gore. It was incredible, and it has trailers. It has all kinds of stuff on it. I guess the main extra was supposed to be like a commentary. It is a commentary track it's supposed to be the main extra that you're interested in. That's what I'm trying to get at. A commentary track with this distributor, Jeffrey Hoag, who distributed the film on VHS. And when the film was on VHS, it was retitled as Dr. Dracula, or Dr. Gore. I was supposed to say, Dr. Dracula. Much better title than The Body Shop, to be honest. And Anitra, he originally wanted to call us Anitra. That was the thing with J.G. Patterson and names. Like, he makes a movie about Electric Chair, but he originally wants to call it The Goat Woman. That's what he originally wanted to call The Electric Chair. He originally wanted to call it the Pig Lady or the Goat Lady or something. It's weird for somebody who's so cued into like exploitation. He doesn't seem to want to get the exploitation titles, does he? But Dr. Gore was released on VHS, and it had an introduction by Herschel Gordon Lewis, who apparently really did not know J.G. Patterson very well, but he does this thing. I think Nita Patterson wrote the thing that that Herschel Gordon Lewis talks about at the beginning, his open little speech at the beginning of the Dr. Gore VHS, where he's talking about J.G. Patterson, saying nice words about him, saying nice things about J.G. Patterson. But, you know, it was on VHS for years, and then it was released on DVD with this commentary track, and the commentary track is okay. It's Jeffrey Ho talking about his life and everything. I only listened to about 20 or 30 minutes of it. It doesn't really go into Dr. Gore at all. Maybe toward the end of the thing, he starts talking about it. But it was like, I watched Dr. Gore and I was like, I got hit by a train. You know, it's like, what happened? Where? Who? How? What? When? And I'm looking for answers. And I'm watching this commentary track, and it's like, I just want to know the answers. Just tell me the answers. Who made this? How did they make it? And he didn't want to give me. And so I wasn't getting the answer to that commentary track. So I got a little bit disturbed. There's not a lot of stuff about Don Brandon, about J.G. Patterson out there. There is a tribute Facebook page, and I want to thank the Facebook page. I got a lot of my information, a lot of stuff in this video is from that tribute page to J.G. Patterson on Facebook, which you should check out. There hasn't been a post on it in a few years, and hopefully there will be now that The Electric Chair is out. His final film is out on Blu-ray. Hopefully something weird, or Mondo Video or AGFA or somebody can get Dr. Gore out, because I avoided it for years and years and years because I'd heard it was so bad. And it is bad, but it's so great. But it's also great. It's great in the way that Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs and those movies are. It's just pure entertainment and weirdness and backwardness, and it does blow you away, and it shocks you in a way. And the gore effects, if you like the gore effects in Blood Feast and Color Me Blood Red and all the rest, it's more of that and more, and craziness and wildness and fun, and Don Brandon's charisma shines through years and years later. Dr. Gore, it's a movie. It's worth checking out. It's worth tracking down. It's a wonderful movie.
On behalf of the motion picture industry, welcome to the world of home video entertainment.